Thursday, September 8th. The board has been in an exec session from 5 until 6 o'clock. In that exec session, we did have all 5 board members, but Director Mullings and Gallinger are not able to be at our regular meeting, so they won't be out here with us tonight. And with that, we will go ahead and please join me and stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. All right, thank you. We are ready and very excited to welcome our student representatives. We have at least some of our student representatives that are now for the first year going to be on our board. We have 8 students from our Liberty, Skyline, Issaquah, and Gibson Neck high schools. And so we are going to have you guys start by going up to the microphone and introducing yourselves. If you guys want to take turns doing that, we're very eager to have you all join us. Yeah, and make sure to say your name, what school you're from, and what grade you're in. Because we are eager to start to, have you around at many of our meetings where we can put names to faces.
All right. My name is Paige Bryan. I'm from Issaquah High School. I'm a current senior, and I've been a really big part of my school's engineering community for a really long time. So I have been a part of our robotics team this is my 4th year. Also, my school's aerospace team, I was captain of both of those. So that was a really good opportunity. And I'm also part of Eagle Crew and stuff like that. I really like helping out, especially the underclassmen, because me being an underclassman, it was really tough. And something I'm looking forward to this year is helping provide input from my school and also helping talk about technology, because that's kind of what I'm focused on. I think it's really important. So thank you.
Excellent. Welcome. Well, I certainly am well familiar with your robotics team. 2 of my daughters, 2 of my 3 were on the robotics team at Issaquah High School. So excellent. Next up.
Hello, my name is Tarang Galela, and I'm a senior at Skyline High School. I'm originally from India, but since I was young, I've lived in a lot of countries. So when I was about 4 months old, I moved to Paris, and I lived there for almost 7 years. I then moved to Finland, where I completed my primary school. And then after that, I moved to Denmark, where I lived for about 6 years. And finally, this January, I moved here to Sammamish. So because of that, I speak quite a lot of languages. So I'm native in English and Hindi, and I also know French, Danish, and some Finnish. One of the things that I'm quite passionate about is promoting women in tech. So as you may know, of all the tech workers, only 20% are women, and that to me is quite inexplicable. I'm honored to be chosen as a representative to the Issaquah School District Board because I've only been here a few months, so for me, it's quite a big achievement. I'm most excited to contribute to EL 12, which is learning environment, because for students, their classroom experiences are essential to their school success. Thank you.
Excellent.
Could you repeat your name? I'm sorry, I didn't catch it.
Oh, it's Tarang.
Thank you.
Thank you. Excellent. Thank you for joining us. All right.
I'm Mia Williamson, and I'm a junior at Liberty High School. I play club soccer as well as high school soccer. I'm in my community dance program when we raise money for Seattle Children's Hospital. I'm in my school choir, and I also love to participate in our school theater program. I'm really excited for this position to get students involved with the board as well as student input for the board, because I think that COVID created a very large gap between students in the district, and not a lot of students know about the structure of our district or what we really do. And I hope that by providing them a voice to the board, they're more interested in getting involved with our district.
Excellent. Thank you. Welcome. All right.
Hello, my name is Nate Sher and I'm a rising senior at Skyline High School. Some of my passions include medicine. So I'm volunteering at Swedish Hospital through the Cope Health Scholars Program, and I've been doing that for about a month or so. Then I've had some past internships in the local area. And another passion is sustainability. So I'm in a local organization called Sustainability Ambassadors. It's a really cool organization. We do some really cool work here around the King County area. And I'm most involved in the solar and the Sammamish teams. And I'm also a track and field athlete. So I do club at GLS, it's a traveling team. And then I'm part of the varsity team at Skyline High School. And then I'm most interested in empowering students. That's part of my personal philosophy.
All right. Excellent. Thank you. Welcome.
Hi, I'm Jordan. I'm a senior at Issaquah High School. Some of my interests include math, engineering, science, government, that type of thing. It's one of the reasons I became a student board representative. So one of the things that I like to do is teach kids that type of thing. And so I work at Kumon and I'm an engineering club. And some of my, the thing I'm most excited about this year is hopefully making our school a better place and learning a little bit about our government and how it works.
Excellent. Welcome. Thank you. And did you want to share a little bit about our students that weren't able to be here tonight?
Yeah. 3 of our student reps aren't able to be here tonight, but they did send me just a little intro about themselves so that you could hear a little bit about them. So the first one is Riley Callan, who's our representative from Gibson Neck High School. Riley is a senior and is most excited about this opportunity to be able to provide some communication to the board around what students are hoping to see at Gibson Neck. We also have Sophia Kovalenko. She's a senior at Liberty High School. And the thing she's most excited about for this year as a student rep is to learn about the proceedings that take place sort of behind the scene in a district outside of the classroom, which determines sort of the quality of her education. Fun fact about Sophia is she's currently in Ukraine providing aid. That's why she can't be here tonight, which is a pretty interesting and wonderful reason to not be here. It's pretty exciting, some of the things that our students have opportunities to do. And then the last student who's not here tonight is Jack O'Connell. Jack is a sophomore at Liberty High School. He's interested in soccer, tennis, and as well as math, science, and writing. And he's looking forward to being a student representative because he's excited to give voice to this from the student perspective around things that happen at his school and see some impactful changes in the future.
Excellent. Well, thank you. And welcome to all of our students. This is a new experience. As you all know, this is a new process for us to have a more dedicated group of students be on our board. And so we're all going to work through kind of our new system together. And hopefully this will all work great. So we're looking forward to having you here. I know at least one of you, was it Mia, might stay and chat with us about EL 11, I think, is the way you guys assigned yourselves to different ELs, and the rest welcome to stay as long as possible. We'd love for you to be a part of our meetings. All right. So next up is public comment. And the first step of public comment is an introduction of at least one new ISD administrator.
Good evening. My name is Jason Morris. I'm the Executive Director of Operations for the Issaquah School District. Superintendent Talyik, members of the board, it is my distinct pleasure and honor to introduce to you our brand new Director of our Basque program, Before and After School Care, Ms. Autumn Fougere. Autumn is a longtime district staff member. She served as our interim director of the Basque program last year. We've worked together for 5 years. I think it's our 5th year already going on year 5 in operating and supervising the Basque program. And so it's my distinct pleasure to introduce Autumn, and she can share a few details about her long career in the ISD. Autumn?
Thank you, Jason. So my name is Autumn Fougere, as Jason said, and I'm excited for this new time that we're having in our program. I have been part of BASC and the Issaquah School District since about 1997. So BASC started in 1993. I came on board just a couple of years later. My first position was actually as a substitute paraprofessional, which would have been an educational assistant at the time. And through the course of my career, I have held lots of different positions in our department. And I'm just very passionate about continuing to lead as we serve the students and families of Issaquah. So thanks so much for this chance to talk to you.
Excellent. Well, welcome. Thank you for coming. We're going to go back to our handshakes. Yes. Excellent. Well, welcome. to
Thank
this
you so
position.
much. Thanks.
Yeah. All right. All right, now is an opportunity for public comment on issues not scheduled for public comment on the meeting agenda. Items that are scheduled for public comment tonight include monitoring report EL 11 discipline, review of interpretation and monitoring evidence, and the first read of board policy updates. So this time now is for all other public comment. And so when I call your name for those that are on the list, and if anyone on Zoom wants to raise their hand, I'll get to that as well. You would go up to the microphone, clearly state your name and school attendance area, limit your comments to 2 minutes, and we will be using a timer to help you with that. The board neither endorses nor censors any opinions expressed in public comment. Please keep comments civil and respectful. No applause or comments from the audience, but feel free to wave hands to show support for the speaker if you would like. So I'll go through the list of the people that are here. Hold on. All right, the first one is Kai Nazararo Gramp. And if you will go on up to the microphone and you can give your public comment.
My name is Kai. I'm from Cedar Trails Elementary, and I want to add to the curriculum life skills, as in personal finance, mortgage, taxes, and how to get a job, because everyone needs to know how to do all of this. And we should be being taught in a younger age, because we're not even taught in high school. And most of us only are taught a little about life skills, and we have to figure it out over the years.
All right, thank you very much for coming up and giving us public comment. We really appreciate hearing from you. Thank you. And then we have Mia Naz, and you can say your last name.
So that was my son, Kai Nazaro Gramp, and I just want to give him props because that was really brave.
It was.
He's in 5th grade. And my name is Mia Nazaro Gramp, and we are in the Cedar Trails Boundary Schools. I wanted to just make a comment that I noticed that Lucy Calkins' curriculum is still on our curriculum for my 2nd grader. And it is not evidence-based, science-based at all. And it's still here. It is not helping our children learn to read. There's so many school districts that have tossed this curriculum. We have better curriculum that we have already paid for, that we're training our teachers on. And it is wasting our children's time. It's wasting our teachers' time learning how to teach it. It's not effective. I'm part of the parents of children with dyslexia. We have advocated for this to be out of our curriculum for years. I urge you to reconsider using this. We have been training teachers on the Ordum-Gillingham method. It works. I have seen the results with my son. It works. We should be training more teachers on it. That grant has expired. We should be training more teachers. We should be advancing that training so that more of our students can learn the basics in reading and writing and spelling so they can be functioning citizens in this community. And it shouldn't be relegated to a small list of staff and faculty. The grant has run out and the training was only limited to a certain number of training sessions. We have the opportunity to continue this, and phonics works for not just our children with special needs and learning disabilities. It works for all children. We shouldn't be just limiting it to the 20%. If we focus on that 20%, we will capture 99% of our children. So why are we not spending our dollars capturing 99% so that we're not wasting our finances? Thank you.
Thank you very much for your input. All right, next up we have Alexandra. And you can tell us your last name.
Hello. My name is Alexandra Kozelczyk. I'm a senior at Skyline High School. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. The recently implemented district policies have come as a sad surprise to me and my fellow students. We are here tonight to express how these policies will impact our education. Flex time is a crucial part of our success, as it provides us valuable time to talk to teachers, ask questions, decompress after a stressful day at school, or even do work at school. I don't understand why we should change something that has provided so much good for students. It organized our time and helped us build important skills in planning and responsibility that we'll be using constantly as adults. Without it, and with these new policies, learning will become increasingly difficult. The mandatory one-to-one laptop policy is unreasonable and damaging to students from all walks of life. These laptops are slow, heavy, and they overheat very easily. It is extra weight in our already full backpacks. I am a student with arthritis, so having a light backpack is a health necessity for me. And last year, I had my own personal device, which cut down on backpack weight and positively impacted my health. But this year, I've already had multiple accidents after just 2 weeks of school because of backpack weight. And school is not a place where I should be suffering from my condition. Additionally, the laptops use monitoring programs like iBoss, which gather an unnecessary amount of data on each student and have raised concerns among myself and my peers on where this data will be stored, who will be able to access it, and how easily it'll be accessible. I understand there are things students should not be searching up in school, but monitoring every student's search history is a huge breach in privacy and is highly offensive. Many of us are preparing for adulthood, but now we use color-coded bathroom passes and have our every internet footstep closely monitored. I am 18. Does anyone on the board use a bathroom pass in this building or have their computer history peered into? In taking your positions, you agreed to listen to the voices of those you serve. I ask you, please hear our collective voices and stand to your promise. Our district-wide petition protesting these policies now stands at over 800 student signatures.
Thank you
so
for your
much.
input.
Thank
We appreciate hearing from you. We have another student, Bruce Quang.
Hello, my name is Bruce Chia and I'm a senior at Skyline High School. Thank you for the opportunity to provide input. I have enjoyed being a part of the Issaquah School District for the past 12 years because of the many opportunities that are given to students. For me, the policy with the greatest impact is the one-to-one laptop policies. Many students have expressed, for lack of a better word, disgust. Last year, the system worked fine. Students who needed a laptop got one. And for those who could afford their own, brought them to school. Only when an activity required a fair environment, like testing, were students required to use a school laptop, which, based on the last 6 years in the district, are not the best with performance. Now, a lot of us with personal devices have them set up the way we like it, and to have to set up on a second computer, which, to be honest, is much, much slower than we are used to, is just going to be hindering to us. Additionally, many of us like to have files on our personal laptop for like history, and having to transfer files from a school laptop over to our personal device can also be cumbersome. Now, finally, the laptops are so laggy that it has been known to take up to 10 minutes just to log into one. And opening Google Chrome sometimes can take 2 to 3 minutes. Just today, when I was helping a student in their IntelliJ for their computer science, a tab took 1 second to register. 1 second might not seem like much, but when you're inputting that with hundreds of keystrokes per minute, that will slowly add up. Now, think of all the computer science students like myself who have to use and run applications that require many more times resources than a simple web browser. Is it really in the best interest of the students to have to wait 10 times longer just to run a 3-line application? Now extrapolate to an IA. Nobody will get work done. Now I want to thank you for listening to our voices. Like the person before me said, our petition has over 800 student signatures.
Thank you very much for your
Yes, thank
input.
you.
We appreciate it. And next up is Bryce Wong.
First, I want to thank you for this opportunity. Hello, my name is Bryce Wong, and I'm a senior at Skyline High School. The ISD has provided many academic and recreational opportunities for me over the past several years, and I hope this continues well into the lives of other growing students. However, there are certain policies that have presented difficult circumstances to my well-being academically and physiologically. In coming here to speak, I hope you all understand that this is a fairly intimate part of myself that I never intended to talk about in public. For several years now, I have faced intense abdominal pains and cramps, in addition to other insanely painful symptoms chronically, despite the lack of apparent cause. Eventually, due to the seemingly freakish nature of my health, I wound up in the health room. This continued for a month until I was tested and examined, and I was eventually diagnosed with IBS. I was advised by the doctors to use the restroom immediately at any sign of bowel discomfort and resist whichever school or classroom policy kept me from doing so. In doing this, I'm merely following the word of the gastroenterologist who helped me that fateful day. The bathroom policies have been nothing but conducive cramp collectors, forcing me to end the day nauseous, bloated, fatigued, and or in pain. Several times now have I been forced to jump the gun on skipping the bathroom passes, which they are available. And to me, this is evidence of an unenforceable policy. IBS is not rare. It is estimated to be in about 10% of students. Last year, I had worked out plans with some of the teachers who allowed me to go when needed and come back more productive. This is no longer reality. The Isd Mission states, it is our responsibility to provide all students the opportunity and support needed to meet their highest capability in a safe and welcoming environment. In taking our positions, you agreed to acknowledge and listen to our student voices, and we thank you for standing up to your promises. We ask that you reconsider the recently implemented district policies with our grievances in mind. The district-wide petition protesting these policies now stands at over 800 student signatures. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your input. And we have one more, and then I'll ask if there's anybody on Zoom. Daisy Hugh?
Good evening. My name is Daisy Hu, and I'm a sophomore at Skyline High School. I've enjoyed my time in the district since kindergarten, and I participate in a variety of activities here. In fact, I just came from dance practice right before this. However, the new policies that have been implemented are not what I or my peers expected coming into this new school year. Today, I'd like to address specifically the bathroom pass and the laptop policies. First, the bathroom pass policies. Unlike my peers, I'm fortunate enough to have a healthy gastrointestinal system as far as I'm concerned so far. So this means that if I need to use the restroom, I have to wait for the one pass shared by over 30 students in my classroom. And this means that while I'm waiting, I'm distracted. I can't focus on what I'm working on because there's somebody with the pass. I have to wait for them to come back and immediately take the pass, or someone else will get it before me. And that's another 5 to 10 minute wait. Because the pass doesn't force these students to go to the bathroom faster. It just forces us to wait longer. This means that sometimes I'll have to go to the bathroom during lecture because I didn't have the chance to get the pass during independent work time. This has happened to me twice already within the past 2 days. Second, I'd like to address the one-on-one mandatory laptop policy, but first I'd like to focus on the communication regarding the policy. With changes as significant as these, I expected more communication between the schools, districts, and students and families. However, there was no clear information provided on what the district could track, see, and alter on our devices. This has led to us having to spread rumors between each other to get any semblance of information. Additionally, it's very difficult to find the terms and conditions, but after I find them, it's even more difficult to understand them. And the policies themselves have also been hurting us because these laptops are less efficient. We can't download the tools we need to succeed. And this collective fear of district tracking has forced many students to stay out of their personal Google accounts at school, which contain valuable documents for their studying purposes. It's really crazy for me to think about personally how students these days are expected to leave and go do their taxes, live on their own, but they can't choose when to use the bathroom. I hope that with these new policies, we can change them or remove them in a way that allows us to develop and grow so we succeed in the world. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your input. And I appreciate tonight we've had a lot of input from students, which is actually quite nice to hear from students. But I hope our students at Skyline High School have been communicating with their school administration and the principal and staff there regarding your concerns. Okay, I see nodding on that. Good. Is there anybody on Zoom? So there's one. Is that, say, Cameron? Cameron, oh, I can't. Oh. Michelle Whitehead. So if you still have your hand up, you can turn on your video and unmute yourself.
Thank you. Michelle Whitehead, Grand Ridge Elementary. And my comment is regarding the student representatives you have with the school board on those particular ELs, those student ambassadors that initially introduced themselves. I don't see anyone representing our special needs community in those student ambassadors. And I would like to see a special needs representative either at the middle school level, high school level, or element. I don't know if it's just high school. I'm assuming it is. Also, I would like the district to take all the necessary means to have the complaints that are given to the school district as a whole to be made public. Maybe by topic, maybe by school, maybe by just break down each school by percentages or in some kind of pie chart. I think that the complaints should be public. You would probably be surprised how many parents have the same complaint on the same topic with the same teacher, the same school, or the same administrative person, or the same department for that matter. And that information honestly should be public. Otherwise, no one knows really what's happening at our schools and in our community, and it would bring it to light and it would be exposed. And I hope that someday it would be exposed. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your input. All right. I don't see, and is there anyone else in the room that wanted to give public input? All right. We have been in the room and on Zoom, and so we'll conclude public input. So now we are on to the approval of the consent agenda.
I move the consent agenda be approved as presented.
Second. Excellent. And before we take a vote, I just wanted to take a moment to point out that on our consent agenda is a new 3-year contract with our Issaquah educators. And I'd like to thank both the district and the IEA bargaining teams for their collaborative work, especially in light of some of the budget challenges the district is facing. So thank you to all that were involved in that effort, definitely. All right, then all those in favor of approval of the consent agenda, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, abstained. That was a 3-0 vote because we only have 3 of us here tonight, so it seems a little odd, but we are good to go on that. All right, then we are on to our oh, no, I should ask, are there any changes to the agenda? Nope. All right, then we are able to move on to works in progress and some info on the first week of school, which is very exciting. I love to see the school buses running in my neighborhood.
I love seeing the school buses run out of the bus yard on their first routes. And so I'll actually be headed to another bus transportation center tomorrow as well. Good evening, everyone. I'm excited to share some of our works in progress, and in particular with a highlight and focus on getting school up and running. Before I get started, I want to make sure that the board and the public knows that the board's received an update on our enrollment. We are slightly up, not by much, but it's always helpful to see an uptick in enrollment in our public schools. And, you know, as we know, we were slightly down compared to last year, but I wanted to make sure our board saw that, and just we will look to the October count to have more updates on that. I also want to share that we've gotten an inclusive transitional kindergarten grant in the amount of $150,000. And last year we received a planning grant, and this is a continuation, and this allows us to expand our transitional kindergarten. Today, I actually saw 4 friends that were part of that program at Newcastle Elementary School, and I saw the value of having 4-year-olds on site at school, and they were learning from their 4th grade friends on the playground during recess, which was pretty incredible to be mentored by older kids at the school. We also have had some strong work with our recovery services that are continuing a bit. And just, we had a huge effort to have tons of meetings with our families of students with IEPs, and our recovery service work is just really very low, the number of students that we are actually going to continue with from the 2022 going forward into the school year. So just want to say that I'll share some more data on that as we continue to progress in that work. And that's been incredible progress. Also under the HR topic, we've had, you know, obviously the great news of having our teacher's contract ratified and now approved, the consent agenda. So thank you to the leader of the bargaining team on our end, Donna Hood, Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources, but the many others who have served on the bargaining team. I also got to meet at Sunny Hills today, 2 teachers who were on the bargaining team from the IEA side, and I got to congratulate them on their effort and teamwork and collaboration with the district. I was told that our team from the district side did a phenomenal job of collaboration and understanding and resolution of questions along the way, and there was a lot of appreciation for our district team members there. So that's big news. And we are continuing to hire subs. We actually hired many of our subs into classroom positions. So we've had a lot of activity in hiring both new certificated subs and classified subs. So we have hired over 30 positions for substitute openings as of now. So those are a couple updates on departments. I will share a couple things from the start of school. So I have now visited 22 schools as of today. And so there are 4 more on the docket tomorrow. And so we'll have visited with also some documentation from both film and camera of our students in their classrooms, and our principals and assistant principals interacting with their staff and with students directly on the playground. And we just have found just so much rich work happening to set up again for this year. And I was so impressed with the quality of teaching in all the classrooms and the high level of engagement. I've also had some favorite moments in lunchrooms when I've gotten to talk with students directly. So the topics that have come forward from our students who provided public input from Skyline, that was actually, those topics were topics at lunch this week. And yes, the principal and administration are aware and are continuing to work with students to hear input. I've already visited Echo Glen. I think I've talked about previously the May Valley Service Center and the Issaquah Transportation Center, and I'm visiting the Plateau Transportation Center tomorrow. I've been able to get to Holly Street as well, but I'm going to plan to go back there to see our students continuing their learning there. So that's been great. It's been inspiring. It's been exciting. I've had also great meetings with the president of the IEA and the WEA UNISERV director, as well as council member and former school board member, Barb DeMichelle, and was grateful to see each of the board members that are here today present at the Cedar Trails dedication last week. There was also Meet the Teacher Day. And it was really a celebration for the school community, by the school community. And it was great to just be able to witness and serve as a observer to the joy that everyone had in welcoming families to get to know their classrooms and to just see the incredible sort of work that team has done to get that school up and running and as well as start the school year. So that's been incredible. A couple other sort of announcement type things. I just want to share that OSPI will actually be releasing student and state test scores, the SBA and WCAS for science, on the state report card website tomorrow. And so you'll see a summary of state level trends and so forth. So I just want to sort of make people aware of that. We will also be doing for the district a community forum on October 20th at 5 p.m. that will continue to fit into our first 100 days of this new school year and my new time as a superintendent. And we'll be able to share a little bit more about what I've been learning and engage in some very specific questions that will help gather input as we continue to, learn and take into account much input from various stakeholders. So those are some of the big highlights. And happy to answer any questions about how things have been going, but it's been a smooth start of the year. And again, I said this last time, but our team members have been doing an incredible job. Our staff members, I did have some pizza and a cookie today at one of our school sites at Endeavor Elementary. And so our kitchen staff is very excited to supply me with their items that are homemade, or not homemade, but freshly made in our kitchen. So staff are just doing a tremendous job across the board. And I really appreciate the warm welcome.
Excellent. Sounds like a great start to the school year. Yeah. Got everybody in and going. Any questions for her? No, that sounds great. Sounds like you've definitely been hitting the road and on your feet to all these schools.
Yes, I need to wear sneakers more.
Yeah. Well, definitely. I think when you set the goal of hitting all of the schools within that first 2 weeks of schools, it's a sneaker time. Yes. There you go. Very good. All right. All right. Moving on. Our next agenda item is monitoring report EL11 discipline, a review of the interpretation and monitoring evidence. This is an opportunity for us to look at last year's monitoring, to discuss the interpretation, the monitoring evidence in advance of the monitoring that will occur on the report that we'll get October 13th. And this is one of those items where we will take public comment during this agenda item. We'll have a board discussion first, and then I will ask for any public comment either in the room or on Zoom. And so let's have a little discussion about EL11. And this, we also have student can chime in too. Just let us know, and you can come up to the microphone if you have some input and want to share when that's the right time for you. All right. I don't know if you had some thoughts to EL11 that you would like to kick us off with. Okay.
Yeah, I have some big picture thoughts, but I'm really eager to hear input on interpretation and some of the evidence that we've been using in the most recent report, and hear from our student representative on input and feedback there. But on a global level, and I'll start with just the general interpretation. I think some of the other comments and wonderings will come forward as we sort of go a little bit deeper. But on a general level, in terms of the interpretation, I do see that part of the interpretation as it relates to the overall statement, the superintendent shall not fail to establish and consistently enforce policies to maintain dignified, safe, and effective environments for all students. I believe it's really important to also interpret that as it relates to having very clear expectations and supports, as well as scaffolds. So when there are clear expectations for both behavior and interaction for students, but also for our adults and how they support that, then we can create the right scaffolds when there are needs to sort of take a different pathway to being able to have that come fully to fruition. So that was one global interpretation I thought could be made, differently, stated differently, and potentially more clear in my mind. The second global interpretation for general interpretation is making sure that we also just name that there are state law change and regulations that often happen on a regular basis, so that we are working in accordance with that and also maintaining and updating our own interpretation and monitoring evidence in conjunction with those releases or changes. My third global comment is really around making sure that we are looking at discipline through an equity lens. and that we are considering whether or not there is disproportionate impact on different groups of students, and that we are understanding what might be behind that, so that we're not unintentionally having an impact on students that is unhealthy and by subgroup. And then there's some details in the last report, obviously, that's related to COVID. And so that work, those comments would be not applicable in my mind moving forward as we look at the interpretation overall. So those are just some global comments. And I do want to say that there's some evidence here of welcoming both student, family, and community voice. But I think that that's an element that could also be more prominent in both the interpretation as well as in some of the evidence of compliance and monitoring. So those are just some of my global comments. But that's my first, sort of articulation of that as we make sense of this, in a discussion manner, and happy to share more along the way. That's the starting point.
Excellent. I don't know if anybody here on the board would like to chime in next, or student. Excellent. Let's have our student give us some input. And again, every time you go up there, just go ahead and state your name so that we have that, for the recording of this.
I'm Mia Williamson, and I'm a student representative from Liberty High School. I just brought together a general overview based on the EL 11, and I picked out some points I felt were more relevant to students. In general, the few peers I've talked to this school year believe that discipline is used to create a safe, distraction-free learning environment. We believe that discipline is, with an exception that I'll expand upon later, equitably enforced without being too harsh. It is worth mentioning that since it's the beginning of the school year, I've only had the chance to talk to classmates that I'm usually in contact with. So these are not students who usually deal with a higher level of discipline. As I mentioned, sometimes we have issues with the equitability of the discipline. So 2 of my classmates felt that sometimes teachers pick favorites and least favorites in their classes, and that is seen in disciplinary actions. And the example that was given was maybe a teacher taking a student's phone and holding it for the rest of the period, whereas maybe telling another student just to put it away or put it down. And I know that's not necessarily a big thing, but it can add up and it can make students feel more unwelcome in a classroom, and that can affect the learning environment. Another issue that we had last year, that obviously I haven't had the chance to see this year, was vaping, specifically in the bathrooms, which is probably part of the reason for the bathroom policies recently. I know some friends would go into a bathroom and maybe there would be a student vaping, and this never happened to me personally, but I have had friends who it's happened to, and then they had to go find a farther bathroom and are away from class for a longer time. And I know it's hard to monitor these kinds of things because it's not like we search every student's bag coming into school, but I think maybe adding more policies that are specific to these situations could be helpful. And then an example of this actually was last year in my creative writing class. A student came in like 20 minutes late, when we had all assumed she was absent. And she said that apparently she had been in a bathroom where the vape detector had gone off. And so she'd been pulled into the office to search her bag, which made sense, obviously, but it was a disruption to her learning. So hopefully we could find a solution to expedite that process. But in general, overall, students feel like discipline in the district is pretty equitable and pretty well enforced, not too harsh, not too weak. And in general, people feel like their learning environment is safe from those disruptions.
All right, thank you very much. We appreciate it. It's a nice thing to have our students be able to weigh in and give that student voice and perspective and experience from school. So good. All right. I'll open it up to you guys. Marnie, or Director Moraldo.
Yeah, and I didn't know if any other of the students reps wanted to come up and speak to that. They're welcome to do that as well. I did have some questions, especially around vaping. When we look at the Healthy Youth Survey, that is an area that did not go down like the others. Other areas went down, and especially given that in the Healthy Youth Survey, 20% of students that said they vape said they did not know what it contained while they were vaping. So I think there is some room for some real education for students around vaping And so my question is, I understand the discipline side of that, but what else are we mitigating? So discipline isn't just punishment. Discipline is redirecting, reteaching. So I think having a more holistic, and maybe even going through this, having a more holistic view of what is discipline. And so how are we supporting students when they are caught with alcohol or marijuana? I know that the state no longer we can no longer make it mandatory that they go and seek the initial fight, taking a look in an inventory where you do an inventory, or are they possibly, do they have a substance use problem? We used to require that, and we are no longer allowed to do that. But what services are provided to students when they are caught with marijuana or vaping or alcohol? So I think, because to me, that's part of discipline, is redirecting and reteaching.
Thank you. I know as I was looking at it, it's titled discipline, and we did that. But, it's really about student conduct and consequences, right? It's really how to use discipline to help steer student conduct to be the good, better type of conduct, so that all students can access their education. But I just had that one thinking.
Oh, and I had one other question looking through the data. Where does sexual assault fall? Is that considered violence? Is it with major injury, without? Is it under serious, sexual harassment or sexually inappropriate conduct? Like, I don't know where that is. We hear often that there are rapes going on in the schools, and we don't hear about it, or off campus, or we can't control what happens off campus. But I've heard that before. Like, did you hear about this? And it's like, no, we don't get a report when it happens. And I don't know where to find to be able to go back to somebody going, well, here's the data on discipline, and I don't see that that's been happening in our schools, because it's the thought that's out there. People will say, oh, there's a rape culture in our high schools, or
Well, I mean, there's sexual harassment, which doesn't seem quite to be a fit. There's violence with or without major injury, which,
right.
I mean, I would think that's where rape would go, but I don't.
And then
know.
sexually inappropriate conduct, which I don't think is
That would be
severe enough
harass.
for, they're different columns. So there's one that's sexual harassment, there's one that's sexually inappropriate conduct, and it's like, I don't know where it falls.
Yeah, I don't either.
And so it gets hidden in the data. So I can't go out and say, well, no, in the 2021 school year, we only had X, or we had 0 rapes, because there's nothing that calls it out, and I don't know.
Interesting points. And two, some of that is the talk of a community, but if it's not reported, then we also don't know. And so there has to be a culture to encourage, if there are incidences, that it's reported, and that students will be supported while they go through that process of reporting, and that steps will be taken.
I mean, so we do have both the harassment, intimidation, and bullying, which is one mechanism, but rape, sexual assaults are all also criminal matters. And so it could fit under the sort of 1C, right? Any form of violence on school property. But I hear your point. And so I'm thinking about making connections without interfering with, the protocol for engaging with law enforcement right away as well.
So it's interesting, because some of the other items, like possession of marijuana, possession of illicit drugs, would also, elicit police criminal activity, that component. And we as a board actually never find out that those things happen. So I don't know, because I know that there's been arrests on campus before, but it's not something that's ever come to the board in any mechanism, either when it happens or in the reporting. It's hard to tell.
Yeah.
How many actual arrests.
Right, other than the underlying discipline for something that they might have done, but not as a separate entity or a way to see it in that regard.
Because, when you look at our SRO program, part of where we we've had conversations in the past about that, is related to relationships with students. They have some discretion at the time when substances are found. Are arrests being made? How is that program working in conjunction with our discipline? And I don't know that it's mentioned anywhere. I'm trying to recall.
Well, because,
what I read.
and an arrest in and of itself isn't, somebody could be arrested and ultimately not charged with a crime, or they could be charged with a crime and ultimately be convicted. So there's a lot of different things that could be an outcome for that.
And there's also events that occur that take a long time to evolve. They get reported. There's an investigation. Nobody gets arrested right away, but maybe eventually somebody does. So from that standpoint, you'd have to figure out what you wanted to track.
Yeah.
Because it's not just, oh, this happened, this person got arrested. It's a process.
So I can see an interpretation, expanding to include some of the topics that, we're discussing. I'm still on evidence of compliance. That might be, more on the education side to what Director Moraldo is speaking about, making sure, we have those kinds of teaching, maybe not reteaching or reteaching in some cases. We do have a sexual health curriculum, which I think is an opportunity to ensure that there's healthy behaviors as well, but helpful, right, to hear some of the discussion on what might be missing in the interpretation as well.
So in doing a cursory, just doing a cursory review, again, I don't see our either the SRO program or the SSO program in here. And I'm wondering, because they are part of supporting discipline, whether or not that might be a good place to reference them.
Right, it's an element of
Part of the evidence.
part of the evidence of compliance in supporting these items. Yeah.
Well, and I was going to say too, that it was interesting that Superintendent Talyik made the comment at the very beginning about looking at discipline through an equity lens, because I think it was in the process of monitoring this EL where the board first really started to have conversations around equity, because this was a really obvious context to see where things were not equitable. So come around full circle. This is a good thing.
Right. Yeah, it has helped us dig deeper into a lot of our data in a
Well, disaggregating the data. Yeah.
disaggregating it, looking at more of an equity lens.
And I did see some evidence of the monitoring of the kind of training that we do. And I just felt like, given our equity commitment, it would be valuable to have that be more prominent, both in the interpretation throughout, as well as in some of the other monitoring sections. One other interpretation I was curious about, not to move in a different direction, but just to get the thoughts of. Number one is around, just to repeat some of the words. Superintendent may not permit student behaviors that disrupt learning. Compared to number three, the superintendent may not permit any unruly behaviors to disrupt learning. At first glance, it feels like it could be repetitive, but as I see the interpretation potentially, that it could be that the first one is more about a safety foundation around personal and physical safety, whereas the interpretation for number three is more around sort of what happens in the interactions in the classroom. But I was curious as to the board's interpretation on that as well.
Right, it certainly does seem that way, because number one is certainly about protecting or trying to prohibit the behaviors around many illegal or violent things, versus number three is trying to help our students learn to be able to engage in the classroom in a constructive way.
Yeah, I mean, to some extent, a lot of these ELs have sort of boilerplate language. And I think in my head, the number 3 is talking about student behavior, like the way students behave. Whereas number 1 is really addressing, use of drugs, use of firearms, use of, committing violent acts, which, yes, correctly, you can categorize as behaviors, but the word behavior is used in a different sense. It would almost be nice to have a different word there. But in my mind, that's the distinction between those two. One is actually the way a student behaves, and the other is things that students are doing that they should not be doing or that is not legal to be doing. But is not legal.
Yeah, because pretty much everything in one is
I would also
behaviors
say-
that are illegal.
Yeah, it should be include, but not limited to.
Right.
I'm sure we could come up with more.
Um,
And I also think you can get a lot of your equity work in this one because it's more about behaviors that are disrupting learning. And if somebody is feeling bullied or intimidated or other things around race, around poverty level, around sexual orientation or gender identity, those kind of things aren't going to rise to the level of number 1. That can often be the things that are disrupting learning for that individual student. So that's where I kind of see that.
That's an interesting, okay. You said something really interesting there because I was looking at 3 and I was thinking about my behavior is disrupting Anne's learning. And you're saying my behavior is disrupting my learning, which is also true. It's a different situation. So that's just.
Well, I was actually
I thought
thinking
that
of the
was really
first. but-
Interesting.
Yeah.
Because it's disrupting the overall classroom, which is impeding the learning.
But to Marnie's point, there could also be a situation that I am experiencing that is, causing me not to be able to learn.
Right. And a lot of this was part of our universal screeners and the PBSES philosophy in the classroom to try to help students with behaviors.
That leads me to one other sort of point of both interpretation as well as some evidence of being in compliance, which is our work to bring together the various components to part of our MTSS system. And so that's a bit of what I was speaking to in the very beginning around, do we have very clear expectations and supports, and that there are scaffolds along the way. In particular for number 3, where we have maybe a different set of types of behaviors that might impede learning, whether it's rooted in bullying or it's other kind of behaviors in the classroom or something rooted to identity and interpersonal interactions based on identity or remarks based on ethnicity, gender, et cetera. So to me, there's a level of our work that we've been doing to bring together various components of our capacity building for social emotional well-being as well as academic supports, because also classroom behaviors are limited when a great teacher is also teaching and engaging every student and at the level that they are learning and what they need. So it's a combination of all these factors to support a positive culture as well. So I was thinking our MTSS work would be evidence of being able to reinforce some of the expectations, behavioral and academically, but also to provide the supports as needed.
Right, because we have a tendency, I think, to focus, the policy reads dignified, safe, and effective environments. And I think we focus a lot on safe because that's critically important, obviously. But, effective environment, that encompasses all kinds of stuff. And to your point with the social, emotional, and the MTSS.
Well, I was going to say, and I do appreciate the word dignified because I think how many times I've read these, I'm in my 13th year, at least 13 times. We're really talking about what does it mean to maintain a dignified environment for students. And I don't know that we've really delved into what does that mean and how do we monitor that we're in compliance with that.
Mhm. It's true. All right, do you have any other points? that You,
I think that there's a lot of things that we have been doing and we put in place for this year that obviously we'll include in the monitoring report, in addition to addressing some of the questions and suggestions in this conversation. So I would say that this has been very helpful. We just tried this on. This was our
To
first,
do
I've
this.
acknowledged that
right.
we're getting input before the monitoring report is prepared and brought forward to the board. So this is helpful to know in advance, and then we can look for how we're kind of have a timing,
It is,
gap.
and it's
Yeah.
important for like our students to know too, that this, we always monitor in arrears.
Yeah.
And so when we do the report in October, it will be for the 21-22 school year. And so it's an interesting thing because you could start doing new things this year, but those things wouldn't really be in the report because we're monitoring the prior year. But you might speak to those things because some of those things that you're doing are because you see something that needs to be filled, a need that needs to be filled. To improve something that we're doing in our schools that might apply to it.
Well, I'm thinking of like the SSO, like transitioning from that. So last year was somewhat of a transition year where some of our staff members were security officers and others were resource officers. And so,
Right, and just the whole organization of safety and security too was kind of in a flux over the last couple of years as they've kind of implemented where they are now. Yeah. All right.
Well, thank you. Helpful
Okay,
input
good.
as we go back and look back, but also make
Right.
connections to where we need to go. Because I think we're
Mhm.
kind of straddling, looking back,
We-
but not waiting another year
Exactly.
for changes or, adjustments to be made. So just want to thank you so much for your input and look forward to the input of the other student representatives who are preparing some. And I'm sure the other students who have not chosen this particular executive limitation, if you have additional thoughts after this, that would be helpful to hear now that you've sort of seen the discussion and gotten to hear, this topic.
The timing of this is actually really good because with a new superintendent who's looking at all of these policies with fresh eyes, whereas Marnie says, we've read them 13 times and they're just gonna, okay, that's the policy. So not only do we have the superintendent with fresh eyes, but we simultaneously have the students with fresh eyes. So lots of exciting things could happen this year in terms of the way we look at this. And to be clear, the monitoring of the executive limitations and the ends is how the school board ultimately judges the superintendent's performance. Now, this year's a little weird because we monitor in arrears and she's reporting on things that happened in a year that she wasn't actually employed here. So it's a little wonky this year, but I really do appreciate that we're getting all these fresh looks and fresh eyes to say, gee, why are you interpreting it that way? When? Yeah. So I think this is great.
Very good. All right. Well, this is one of those items where we would take public comment. If anybody in the room or on Zoom has public comment, we would take it now related to our discussion on EL 11. And of course, EL 11 will come back as an official monitoring, and there will be another opportunity for anyone in the community and our students again to have comment. Do you have public comment? Then you may go to the microphone. And again, as you get there, state your name and your school, and we'll have our 2-minute timer.
Thank you. My name is Alexandra Kozelczyk, and once again from Skyline High School. And listening to this, I was very interested when the bathrooms were mentioned and vaping in the bathrooms, which is a big problem at my school, as well as the discussion about student dignity and how discipline should be done with equity in mind so that a greater majority is not affected negatively by it. Because
specifically, I'm going to choose one because there's so much to talk about, but with the bathroom policy specifically, it is affecting students who do not misuse the bathrooms. Because we have only one bathroom pass, people will be waiting for it to be done. And the people who do misuse or have misused their bathroom pass or their bathroom time in the past will continue to do so because it is not limiting them from misusing it. They still go for longer periods of time. They still congregate in the bathroom with their friends. It is not effective to stop that behavior or prevent it. It is only kind of affecting everyone in a more negative way because now there's only one bathroom pass, at least in my school. And so the students who have never misused that time in the past now have to wait and miss lectures or miss valuable class time. Thank you.
Thank you for your input. All right, and I don't see anyone else, and so we will move on. Thank you, everyone. All right. Next up is the first read of board policy updates. This is also an item that towards the end, I will take public comment. This policy work stems from the board's retreat on August 23rd. The board had the opportunity to review our policies in consideration of, are these policies still the way we want them worded? Are there any updates to laws or other policies that interconnect with them? So we went through our board superintendent linkages, our governance process, and our operational governance policies. This is why you see a long list. The board superintendent linkages, you'll hear us refer to them as BSLs, the governance process as GPs, and the operational governance policies as OGPs. The BSLs and GPs, we usually try to review once a year. We certainly did get behind while we were in COVID. The OGPs were put into place in 2015, and we really haven't reviewed them since. So this was a really good opportunity, and some of the changes there are very legal reference because many of those reference RCWs. So at this time, we're going to do a first read of these policies. And then barring any significant changes, they will be on the consent agenda for actual approval at our next meeting. These policies, well, in particular, the OGPs have not only had our chosen revisions, but revisions by our legal counsel and been reviewed by them. There were a few other policies that had some what we would call grammatical changes, such as changing his or her to their, or changing capitalization for president and superintendent, or changes to the RCW names. Since we consider those more grammatical changes and don't have actual meaning changes, then those changes we will just go ahead and make. We don't need to take them through this first and second read process. And I'll also point out that OGP 6, which is the Director District's Reconfiguration and Description Policy. It includes the legal description of the new Director District map that the board approved in June. So the board did our action on a map concept in June, and now we take that legal description and put it into OGP 6. That legal description wasn't ready yet. We think it'll be ready in 2 weeks. I'm comfortable putting it in on consent because it's a very legal set of words. It's not something that the board would even touch otherwise. And so that one is not listed on here tonight because we didn't have it ready. And then otherwise, what we'll end up doing is going through these one by one. If anybody on the board has any suggestions on changes, then we would address those and consider that. And if not, we'll just go from one to the other. So what I'm hoping to do is share my screen.
And we should add that Ann and I worked together and went through these all with a fine tooth comb to make sure first that we captured all the changes that we talked about making in the retreat, and then really went through the OGPs and looked at the changes that the lawyers recommended, plus the things that we talked about in the retreat. So we're good with them. So we're really just talking to you.
And I wanted to offer my thanks to you for going through and being so diligent, taking our conversation and making it words on a page.
And I realize this is probably not the most scintillating thing for the public at large to be watching, but it is important because these are our rules of conduct, right? The GPs govern how the board behaves. The BSLs govern how the board and the superintendent behave together. The executive limitations restrict what the superintendent is allowed to do based on board values. We're not actually doing ELs. And the OGPs are really more legal things. They're what used to be the 1000 series district policies, but they in fact in a policy governance system should be owned by the board. I know this isn't, like I said, this is not scintillating to watch, but it's important for us to really have refined rules of how we behave and how we do our work, because otherwise we could run amok.
Mhm. All right, so I thank you for explaining all that while I managed to share my screen. And so we have the first one up is BSL 3. Did you want to go through?
I can talk to them.
Okay, you talk to them and I'll manage the.
So I think this was just changes we talked about at the retreat on number 3. We deleted that first sentence. The board will view superintendent performance as identical to organizational performance, because we felt that the second sentence was equally explanatory. And then in number 4, we added the word final. The board will not participate in decisions or final action involving the hiring, evaluating, disciplining, or dismissal of any employee other than the superintendent. And there's a bar by 5, but it doesn't look like we made a change.
I think
Oh,
there's
it's
a
just
comma.
That's a comma.
There's a comma
Sorry.
added.
I
So,
fuss about commas.
okay.
So. Need
Oh.
input on that? No.
Nope.
Good.
Looks good.
Okay.
Okay. I have the next one is BSL 4.
4. Okay, this one was really simple in both number 3 and number 4. We said all activities subject to approval by the board where required by law, and we added where required by law or board policy in both 4 and 5. Because we realize that there are some things that aren't necessarily required by law, but they are required by our policy.
All right. And then BSL 5E.
So 5E, and I've got to apologize here because.
Oh, I can do that one.
A little bit slow.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, no, I've got it. This was just, this is the form that we use as part of the superintendent evaluation. And we simply made changes to reflect the actual names of our ELs and ends, because we have changed some of them. So EL 9 is annual report to public. EL 10 structure of schools. EL 12 is learning environment, and ENS 3 is civic engagement. Change that from citizenship.
Yeah, that just lets us match up with the earlier changes we made.
Right.
And I'd say I'm still only baffled by how EL 10 has had the wrong title for like 12 years.
Well,
And I've been
we
board
knew what we
president
meant.
twice.
I know. I am surprised.
I'm like, that just seems odd.
I know.
That's why we do this.
It's
work,
hard. It's
right?
hard to see it when you think it says what you thought it said, right? All right. So those are the only ones I think we're changing in the
Yeah,
BSLs.
BSLs were pretty straight.
Very straightforward. Now this is GP2.
Okay, so
And let me get-
GP2, which is governing style. We added a bullet point under to ensure that the board's business meetings are conducted with maximum effectiveness and efficiency. Members will, and we added an H, that one of the things members will do is provide any new data or information to all members at least 24 hours prior to the meeting where it will be discussed.
All right. And that was the, and then one other
Oh.
little place.
Yes, and then on number 7, where we talked about self-monitoring, will compare board activity and discipline to policies. We added operational governance policy because that wasn't listed in the list.
Right.
Governance policy, BSLs, and operational governance.
Right. And the self-monitoring and comparing the board activity to our policies is what we're doing.
Yes.
This is why we do what we're doing. It's because it says it there for one thing. All right. I I have GP3 up next.
Pull
Okay,
these all up in advance.
that's okay.
Okay, GP3 Board Job Description. We just added a bullet point.
Oh.
Under number 2, where we talk about our policies, we added the fact that we do have operational governance policies, which are rules governing the legal status and operation of the board.
And I
Is that
think,
the only, no, and then we deleted number 9, which was appoint a board committee of 2 to participate in the state audit exit interview, because we determined that that belonged under the GP that talked about what the board president should do, because in fact, the board president appoints those people, not the board.
all right. And then that just renumbered. So that was all for
And
that
just
one.
renumbered, yes.
Okay,
So
And-
GP4,
I have GP4 next.
agenda planning. Oh, that was.
Let me find,
Oh, no. there
A
were 2 things on
renaming.
here. Under accordingly, B1, we changed the word consultations to linkages, because linkages is what we call them when we meet with groups in the community. And under D1, we made personnel actions, and we deleted travel requests, because in all the time I've been on the board, we've never had travel requests on the consent
And-
agenda. And
and
the
I-
lawyer said it was
I did
fine.
run it by the legal counsel, who said that is something that we have directed to the superintendent to handle. And he said sometimes a board could put something in there about travel requests over a certain amount or something, but we have never done that. And so now we're cleaning up this policy to match what we've actually been doing. So there's that proposition. All right.
We got
Next.
A little more stuff in GP5, which is the chief
Okay.
governance officer's role. On page 2, we, there's a lot of stuff in here where things were capitalized that shouldn't have been, and we just fixed it. C became appointing one of the existing board members to serve as a new director mentor for any newly appointed or elected board member. And we wanted to specifically call it that, because we're also proposing another GP to define what that person does. So that's now going to be an official role of a board. And this is where the state audit exit interview comes back. D, appointing 2 board members to participate in the state audit exit interview process. E, we added appointing a board member to the FACT, Financial Advisory Core Team. F, appointing 1 or 2 board members, preferably those not in director districts up for election, to conduct an information session for potential board candidates for office no later than early spring of each election year.
And this was something that we had always done in practice, but had never been in our policy. And so by putting it in here, it helps to reinforce that we would like this to be done every time there's an election cycle, because we'd
Also
like to.
reminds us to do it.
It does remind us to do it, because we want to help educate anyone who could be interested in running for school board when it is that time.
Okay, the next 2 look like changes, but they're just getting rid of capital letters. There were a couple of these presidential appointments that referred to subcommittees, and we decided that just because you have 2 board members, it's not necessarily a subcommittee. So we got rid of that. So we are now appointing 2 board members to review and update the ISD School Board Handbook no later than early spring of each election year. That's what it's actually called. So I just fixed it. Appointing 2 board members to conduct leadership meetings with city electeds as required. Again, we got rid of those subcommittees. And then on K,
Okay, yeah, okay.
yeah,
Nope, I'm
where
K.
we talk about agenda planning, which is done by the president and immediate past president, we added, in the event that there is no immediate past president, another past president will be assigned to participate in agenda planning by consensus of the board. Now, did that translate what you were, because you were the one that.
We did debate this a little bit about
Well-
who and how to manage it.
Because I know that when I did that,
Yeah.
perform that role, I was not a past president. So It might be another board member is selected.
Oh, no,
Now,
I
see,
thought you wanted it.
that.
Yeah, I did too. I thought you wanted it to be a past
Somebody
president.
that had been a president to have that experience.
It's always great,
Yeah.
but it's not what happened in
Your
the one case that I took over and
Would-
started attending those.
Would we rather than say another board member? Rather than another past president? I'm fine either way.
I'm fine either way.
I think another board member would be better. And then, God forbid, if for some reason there is no other immediate past president or no other past president on the board.
Well,
Well,
that
it-
could happen.
It could happen.
Well, it could happen that there would be nobody that was an immediate past president, and then they just have to put anybody
Yeah.
that's on the board.
I believe that one of the members that's not present tonight, one of the board members that raised this topic with that specific suggestion. So.
Oh,
what-
okay.
Yeah,
was
I
it?
don't, I do remember that being raised.
I thought it was Marnie,
I thought it was Marnie who really wanted it to be a prior.
but you
immediate
might be
past
right.
I think I took a note about that. I don't have my exact, actually, I probably do, but I think it was
president.
someone,
Did it be an immediate-
I think it was another board member who might have suggested it in this manner. But I do remember that there was a
It
long-
wa-
a long
we had
conversation about it. Yeah, so I-
this one, because we had a couple of different theories on how to handle this.
Okay, wait, let me
Um,
see if I took a note. Oops.
Well, I mean, given this is a first read, we can,
We can,
Well, we can
look-
just not consent agenda that
This
one and discuss it.
because I mean, another option would be to say another member, preferably a past president. Preferably another past. president.
oh, it
Okay.
could say preferably, because that would indicate a preference, but not lock you in case there isn't one.
That works for me.
Um,
Past president will be sent, and then maybe this is the part that I'm remembering was you. We did it by consensus of the board as opposed to the
A vote.
president shall appoint.
yes, we did.
Okay.
That's true. There might have been two different.
There were two
Because
different
there was-
things we talked about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we can make that change and still bring it back to the whole board to discuss, because we don't have all 5 board members.
Mhm.
And to be honest, all the other 2 board members that were not able to be here tonight can still weigh in on any of this. It doesn't, so if anybody did have issues, they would let us know. And then they wouldn't have to go straight to consent agenda. So, you know, their input can still be taken, that this doesn't preclude it. All right, and then L,
Was
but
there
I think
anything-
it's the
oh, there are- there's still-
capitalization.
Oh, no, those are just caps. Yeah, I think that was it.
And then that was it on GP5. Okay. All right, now we're on to GP11. Oh, and that was just changing the name from what used to be Legislassembly to
Right.
General
General
That one was-
Assembly.
That
It's-
was it.
It's the name that WASDA is now using, our association. So that's just following that.
Okay, and then,
OGP1. And
no.
Oh,
We have
wait.
proposed
Oh, hold on.
GP13.
I think I opened them out of order for that. Let me go to the end.
So this one,
Hold on. Don't, you can't go somewhere I'm not.
well, no, I was just gonna say that this one was written from scratch. So there are no changes. It's all new. So I don't know, do we want to read it?
First, I have to find it. Just a
Well,
minute.
no, I can read it while you're finding it. but-
No, let me get it up so people can see it. And I think it's because the naming of it put it out of order. All right, here I now have
You
our
have it?
GP13 is up.
So this was, since we have a GP that specifically talks about the board chair's role, and we have a GP that specifically addresses the ledge rep's role, we thought we should specifically address what is the role of the new director mentor. So each newly elected or appointed Issaquah school director will be assigned a new director mentor by the board president. The new director mentor will help new directors to understand the policies and procedures of the board and administrative regulations of the district. Accordingly, the new director mentor will 1, arrange a meeting with the new director to review the ISD School Board Handbook. This review should include discussion of A, the roles of the school board and the superintendent in a policy governance district. B, school board governance policies, GPs, BSLs, Ns, ELs, and OGPs. C, the cadence of a typical board meeting. D, training opportunities and expectations. E, the board's annual calendar. 2, in conjunction with the superintendent, arrange meetings with the new director and each cabinet level staff member. 3, arrange for the new director to take Open Public Meetings Act, OPMA, and Public Records Act, PRA, training within 90 days of taking the oath of office. 4, review educational equity training requirements, which must be completed within 2 years of their election. 5, review Public Disclosure Commission requirements. We should probably put PDC in parens. 6, provide the new director with a copy of the book, Good Governance is a Choice by Randy Quinn and Linda Dawson, and review the basics of policy governance. 7, check in with the new director prior to the first few board meetings. 8, be available to the new director to help address any questions or concerns. So did we cover everything a new director needs to know?
I think so.
And I'm just gonna
Okay.
add a note to fix that PDC thing.
Yep. I made a
Mhm.
note too.
Is
My
this a-
one
oh.
question is,
Go
oh,
ahead.
sorry, around cabinet level staff member or then the SAC, is it the? And I don't know if you have a different structure that you're planning to go to.
I do have a different structure. So cabinet would be appropriate
Okay.
here in this. Yeah. Thanks for asking that.
Did you have anything else?
I was,
Yeah.
it was a technical word question. I appreciate all the discussion, by the way. So thank you. New director mentor job description. Is it just a role description? The job makes me think it's an employment and then there's compensation.
Oh,
So
no.
I don't know why my brain was going that way, but
You know, I think I probably did it because I think we say ledger rep job description. What does GP12 say?
oh, to make that consistent.
But there's no reason that we couldn't. We talk about the role of the chief governance officer. So we could change both of those to be the role of the legislative rep and the role of the new director mentor.
It was just a wondering for me because job to me then suggested
Yeah, I like that
compensation
better.
or employment.
And you're right. The GP11 does say job description, which is why you.
Which is
copied that.
why I did it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I like role better.
Yeah. Good point.
That's why we review these.
Okay. Right. Okay. I know, this is a little tedious.
I know. How many people have we lost?
Okay.
after this
It's
Zoom?
okay. I was the one that wanted to
I
talk
know.
about one word. So.
I know. No, but see, this is our opportunity to make the policies right. And so when we hear other people's thinkings about them, it helps us get to a better place. Okay, so that was GP13.
Face it, not everybody's as wonky as we are.
No.
Okay,
Okay, now were you gonna do OGP one?
sure. I can do OGP1.
OGP
Okay,
one is kind of intimidating.
It is.
Because it looks like it got totally changed, but mostly they rearranged
yeah,
stuff.
so a couple of things about OGP1. Much of it has to do with the Open Public Meeting Act and the rules around that. And some of those rules changed. So many of the changes here were put in by legal counsel to match with the changes that were made in the law of OPMA. Some things were rearranged. And so it looks at times like a deletion, but I know that it's a movement in the organization of the policy. So if where we look at the very first two paragraphs that are all in red, they are moved from another section. So it's not all new, other than it used to say just all meetings shall be open to the, and it changed it to all board meetings shall be open to the public. Okay.
That is an important change.
That is an important change. I read that. I thought, wow, how about that? How did we, not have the insertion? Because the Open Public Meeting Act really applies to the board meeting. And then in that second paragraph, which again was just moved, the only word that was changed was the addition of accessible. So it would read, the district's public records shall be accessible in the manner provided by and subject to the limitation of the law.
That used to be open for inspection.
Open for inspection instead. And then notice was added that public notice of board meeting shall be given in compliance with the law. And this is again another place where they suggested making headings. So before just the word, it just had the sentence like public notice of board meeting. So it created a header of notice and referenced that notice has to be in compliance with the law. And then the regular meetings, again, it just created a heading. And on that one, all it did was capitalize the B and change an apostrophe, which I didn't quite get, but it's okay. So that's all that was about. Special meetings, again, created a header and in it changed a reference to electronic mail to email. Okay. And then what was truly added was the very end. And that had to do in this relation to special meetings that written notice shall also be sent not less than 24 hours prior to the meeting to each newspaper and radio or television station that has filed a written request for such notices posted on the website. And this is the new part, prominently displayed at the main entrance of the district's principal location and the meeting site. If it is not held at the district's principal location and is not held as a remote meeting, except during a declared emergency, which prevents a meeting from being held in person with reasonable safety.
You gotta love lawyers.
I know, goodness. And see, in such circumstance, notice of a remote meeting without a physical location may be posted on the district's website. Notice is not required when a special meeting is called to deal with emergencies as allowed by law. So that's the section that was added.
I will say one of the things that the lawyers did throughout this that was really helpful in places where we were, being really specific, like minutes must be saved, X amount of weeks, months, years, whatever. They just changed it to as required by law. So that if the law changes, we don't have to change our policy. Which
Yeah,
is
we'll get
kinda
to that.
awesome.
Okay. So another section that was added, and again, this was in addition to the OPMA, was regarding emergencies. If an emergency is declared by the government, i.e. federal, state, or local agency, the district determines that it cannot hold a board meeting with individuals in person with reasonable safety because of the emergency. The district may A, hold a remote board meeting without a physical location, or B, hold a board meeting at which the physical attendance by some or all individuals is limited due to a declared emergency. During a remote meeting, members of the board may appear or attend by phone or by other electronic means that allow real-time verbal communication without being in the same physical location. In such a circumstance, the district must provide an option for the public to listen to the board meeting telephonically or by using a readily available alternative in real time that does not require an additional cost for participation. The board may take no action at a remote meeting or a meeting at which the physical attendance of some or all individuals is limited due to a declared emergency if the district has not provided an option for the public to listen to the proceedings except for an executive session as allowed by law. And then they added a section on remote attendance, which indicates board members may participate in meetings remotely, even in circumstances where there is no declared emergency. So for example, a board member could have joined us by Zoom if that was something that worked for them.
Before we move on, in A and B,
Yes.
the words board meeting are not capitalized
The same.
consistently.
Oh, yeah, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, I think we have, and then in the previous sentence, they do it a third way, which
Yeah.
is kind of fun. I think the pattern that I've been seeing is capital B, small m.
Yeah, we can.
Which isn't technically correct,
Right.
but I didn't want to go back and change things.
Good point, but we'll go back and that I think we could clean up to be more consistent. across
Consistent,
it.
I agree.
Yeah.
Let's,
Okay.
however we do it, let's do it the
Consistent.
same.
Okay,
It sounds so small, but people go through this and they go, you're in education. How do you get this stuff wrong?
I know. So we will clean that up.
Well, and at least if we're going to get it wrong, let's do it the same.
The same way. Superintendent?
This is, I'm an English, I was a former
Oh.
English teacher and English major, so I do look at some of those things as well. So in the first sentence under emergencies, did we mean to say EG, which is for example, which is a list of government agencies versus in other words, which is should be a description of.
Yeah.
So I was wondering if we should just do EG versus IE.
I will believe you. You're an English
I-
teacher. For the students.
Close
I'm
reading.
an engineer.
Well, I was gonna say, unless federal, state, or local is all inclusive, and then it would be IE.
I think you're right. That's why I could see it both ways, but I was thinking, for example, I pose the question because, and we can. we don't
Either
have to
way, there
debate
could
it.
be a comment.
Okay.
I did see that too. Okay, and we'll clean, okay, you guys can decide about that one later.
I think actually it is IE because I think federal, state, or local is pretty much all inclusive.
So therefore it is in the
So
other
it would
words.
be-
It's
it
another,
would
in a
be
way of
IE.
describing government.
But,
Okay.
you know, I mean, I can be
Yeah.
talked out of it.
And then, so a question, so we assume and also remote attendance that would assume that there was already a quorum for in-person, correct?
That's a good question because I don't know, I don't think it has to be all in person. So,
There has to be a physical location where people can come,
right.
but there is nothing, I think the board does not actually have to be in that same
I
location.
agree. So I don't think we would,
You could let people in here and we could all Zoom.
we
on the
could all
screen,
be on the
Yeah.
Zoom.
as long as people could come to the meeting, hear the meeting, and interact with us.
Right.
I believe.
Like if we wanted, let's say we were at annual conference in Spokane, and for some reason we needed to call a meeting, a special
That's a good
meeting,
example.
Right.
but
So-
that it was open to the public.
Right.
We could do so, all be remote, but it would still have a physical location that people could come.
Right. I think so. Any others for as far as I am? Oh, Diane, did you have one? Okay, all right. All right, then I'm gonna keep going. Thankfully, the rest of the OGPs didn't have this many changes.
Mm.
All right, where we see under quorum, several things were deleted. They actually weren't deleted, they were moved to the top, and I referenced that when we were up at the top. A couple of these are changing, again, the superintendent from a little s to a big S. And then we go into other changes that were in the Open Public Meeting Act changes, which is interruptions. In the event that a board meeting is interrupted by individuals such that the orderly conduct of said meeting is unfeasible and order cannot be restored by the removal of individuals who are interrupting the meeting, the board may order the meeting room cleared and continue in session, or may adjourn the meeting and reconvene at another location selected by a majority vote of the board members. In such a session, final disposition may be taken only on matters appearing on the agenda. Representatives of the media, except those participating in the disturbance, are allowed to attend any session held in such circumstance. The board is not prohibited from establishing a procedure for readmitting individuals not responsible for disturbing the orderly conduct of the meeting or from stopping individuals from speaking to the board when not recognized by the board to speak. These were some issues that must have been happening
Yeah, I think.
over the last
that's
bit
a
of
coping
time.
rule.
Yeah,
I
And-
think Lake Washington was the example of that.
They did,
Okay.
Yeah.
okay. And then under audience participation, some of this again was a rearranging of the way the words were ordered. So I'm just going to read through it so that I'm just checking to see how far I have to go. Okay. So that we're clear we have it. So under audience participation, the board recognizes the value of public comment on educational issues and the importance of involving members of the public in its meetings. In order to permit fair and orderly expression of such comment, the board will provide a period for public comment at or before every regular meeting at which final action is taken. Except no public comment period will be provided in an emergency situation. The board may accept these public comments orally at the meeting or in a writing that is submitted at or before the meeting. If the board accepts comment in writing, the comment must be distributed to the board. The board may set a reasonable deadline for submitting written testimony before the meeting. Invited guests may also make formal presentations. However, such presentations should be scheduled in advance.
Okay, before you keep
Oh,
going, there
sure.
was definitely the or in a writing. I think it's supposed to be or in writing.
Okay. Got an extra word in
There's
there.
just an extra
Okay,
word. I'll fix
make
it.
a note of that.
Yeah.
The board has the authority to deal with interruptions, to put limitations on the time available for public comment or on how public comment is accepted as allowed by law. The board also is not required to accept or allow public comment that violates the law or potentially renders orderly conduct of the meeting unfeasible and may take action to address this, which is kind of part of that interruption section at the bottom. Okay, upon request of the individuals who have a disability, limited mobility, or any other reason that makes physical attendance at a board meeting difficult, the board shall, when feasible, provide an opportunity for that individual to provide oral comment at the meeting remotely if oral comment from other members of the public will be accepted at the meeting. For example, that's where we take our Zoom public input. All right, the next section, individuals who have a disability, limited mobility, or any other reason that makes physical attendance at a board meeting difficult, who desire to attend a meeting in person and make public comment in person, should contact the superintendent's office no later than 3 days before a regular meeting and as soon as possible in advance of a special meeting so that arrangements for modification to participate in the meeting can be made in advance. Individuals wishing to be heard by the board shall first be recognized by the board president. Individuals, after identifying themselves, will proceed to make comments as briefly as the subject permits. Any representative of a firm eligible to bid on materials or services solicited by the board shall also be entitled to express an opinion. Beyond the generally accepted expectation of 2 minutes per speaker for public input, the board president may interrupt or terminate an individual's statement when it becomes too lengthy, personally directed, abusive, obscene, or irrelevant. The board as a whole shall have the final decision in determining the appropriateness of all such rulings.
Okay, was that the one where we wanted to change input to comment?
Yes, did I say that?
No, you didn't, but I was just catching it and I was trying to remember if that was the one that we had already identified.
I think there was a place. There was definitely a place where it said public input instead of public comment, and where we're going to fix that.
We're trying to consistently refer to public comment.
Yes. And okay. All right. Agendas, the board's regular meeting agendas will be available no later than 24 hours in advance of the published start time of the board meeting. And then on to minutes. Meeting minutes will be kept in accordance with the law. In addition, okay, so the rest of that was all the same, other than on E, action to recess for executive session with a statement of the announced purpose for excluding the public from the meeting place. That was just a clarity of the language. And then a section that used to talk about how long to keep recordings and minutes and stuff and such was just changed to recorded discussions shall be maintained on file as required by law, because again, the law can change. And that last sentence, a file of permanent minutes of all board meetings will be maintained again as required by law. So those were the changes. So this one had a lot of changes, but much of it was done by legal counsel in relation to the OPMA changes. Any other feedback on those later sections? Did anybody saw anything? Good, okay.
I'm just curious because there was a change to say chapter 28A
Oh, down here?
RCW
Yes.
in the legal references where the RCW is after instead of,
Oh, the
because
chapter.
usually it's RCW
Yeah.
28A.320.
I see that.
I can't explain that.
Yeah, I can't say I really caught that before. We can look at it and see if that's just a error in formatting.
Now, there's a couple of times that it's done.
Okay, we'll look at that. All right, All right, if that one's done. Thank
that
goodness,
one was
the other ones are
brutal.
way easier. Okay. We are on to OGP 2. How are we doing on timing? 7:50. We're about where we said we'd be. A couple more to go. Do you want to start over or take on this one?
I can.
Start over.
Yeah, I don't
No,
want to
not
start
didn't mean
over,
start
but
over. I
I
mean,
will be
you
happy to
start
take
over.
over.
Your part. That's what I mean.
Okay,
Okay.
this was a lawyer change on executive or closed sentence session. It was just, they deleted the word. We initially said announce the general purpose, and they just said announce the purpose and added the announced purpose of excluding the public must be entered into the meeting minutes in accordance with the law. That again is something we've always done. They're just making it clear. And then at the end,
Mhm.
they public notice is not required prior to holding proceedings excluded by RCW 42.30, including a closed session for the following purposes. So they're making a reference to the RCW around executive sessions.
Oh, well, closed sessions,
Closed
which are
sessions, I'm
different,
sorry,
which are
closed sessions.
different.
And I believe those are the only two changes.
I think
to that
so.
One.
All right, OGP 4.
It's fast.
And really the most all it renumbered. So they added one line.
Yeah, okay, so, they did, okay, so this was, defining the job requirements of the superintendent as board secretary. They added the first bullet, which was attending all board meetings unless reasonably excused by the board president and causing to have made a record of the proceeding. And then the rest are just renumbered.
And you're gonna ask, what does that mean? That just means you have to come to all the board meetings.
People causing to have made a record.
Yeah, like
That
the
means
minutes
Stephen.
and
Oh, okay.
And Diane, yeah.
Okay.
Their
So
recording of it.
Thank you.
It is your responsibility to make
Yes.
sure we have meetings and
Yes. Okay.
minutes and video.
Got it. It just was, for some reason, it felt awkwardly stated for a
It-
second.
it is-
And
it's
it could be because I'm
incredibly
deep in the language
stated.
now. So I just,
I know.
yeah.
Yeah,
I think
no,
it's very awkwardly
it's
stated.
lawyer
I'm like-
gobbledygook.
I'm like,
It's just passive,
It
have
is.
made.
Yeah.
It's just not, yeah.
I agree.
But I think the point there is you don't have to do it. You just have to cause it to happen.
Yes. Yes,
So I think that's what they're getting at.
right. Well, but then again, the next line says maintain an accurate and complete record of all board proceedings.
Yeah, it does.
So to that extent,
Anyway, that was their change. not
but we do
ours.
it.
It was a legal change too. I understand that.
Yeah,
It's
we
just-
didn't
It
put
was
the
just saying it was
three-
awkwardly.
it's the
phrased.
redundant act of redundancy.
I think so.
redundancy.
Yeah. All right. And then OGP 8.
7.
Oh,
Yep, 7. You have to capitalize the S and add a few
Well, yeah, I mean,
items about the handbook.
I'm not worried about
Oh,
the caps.
no, we didn't. That was the one where we declared that was grammatical.
Right,
So-
but no,
Right.
no, but there's stuff at the end
There's
on
stuff at the
OGP
end.
7.
Oh, but we didn't attach OGP 7.
we
did we?
did. I
Oh,
just
oh,
clicked on
okay.
it.
Clicked on
Okay.
it.
Then that, guys, easy. And that was. Okay.
To the public, this is how we interact when we're at board retreat.
Dear.
Okay. I missed one. So that's all I'm saying.
That's
Okay, I
It's
can get
okay,
it.
You can catch
I
up.
see 5, C3, 4, 5. Oh, no, I'm in the wrong place. OGP, you guys, 7.
Yep.
Okay,
Okay, so scroll down. Wait, it's not on the screen.
oh, I know why. I've got to,
You have to close some windows or something.
Exit one, come out the other.
I'm almost there.
I'll have a little drink.
Of water. Just gonna finish that sentence.
Thank you, Marnie.
Okay,
There we go. Okay, so if you scroll to page 2, because the only change on page 1 is the capital.
all right, all
So
right,
on
thank
pa-
you.
So on page 2, where we're talking about candidate orientation, one of the things we will do for new candidates or for board candidates, providing each candidate with access to publications of the district, including the ISD School Board Handbook, because we feel that's a really important thing for people to have. and we worked hard to create it. And then on E, providing each candidate with information regarding the Open Public Meetings Act and the Public Disclosure Commission, because there was some weird reference in there to something we didn't understand.
Yeah.
Yeah, I-
Public Disclosure Act or something.
Well, just say, yeah,
Yeah, and then the lawyers updated an RCW reference. At the bottom.
Okay. Maureen, have you been?
yes.
Oh, good. Just because we're getting close to the end of
Well, and he
this.
didn't think that he'd make it home in time. And I said, but the OGPs are taking a bit longer
Bit
than I
longer.
suppose.
We're getting close.
Yeah, well,
Okay, so that
Okay,
was,
now-
that was 7. So now I'm
OGP.
on 8.
okay, this is director orientation. And in the first paragraph where we go to facilitate this process, the board president will assign a new director mentor to each new director. New directors will also be shown how to access. So instead of provided with, most of this stuff's online, so they can just access it. We list a variety of things. We deleted district staff handbook because we didn't know what it was. We added on the district budget, we added and a guide to understanding the budget. We deleted achievement test results and relevant data for evaluating student learning and replaced it with school improvement plans.
Which
We-
contain all that
which
information.
contain all that stuff. We changed staff member job descriptions and a staff organizational chart to a cabinet level organizational chart. And then just added on the bottom, the new director mentor and the superintendent will assist each new director. And the rest of that is commas and capitals
Mm-hmm.
and hyphens.
All right.
Okay.
Next I have OGP 9
Oh, there it is.
and
That one is simply the oath of office. There were some his, hers changed to their, and we deleted the part about and to promote the interests of education, because that's not actually in the oath. And the lawyer didn't have any problem with that.
No.
So
we're trying to match what's real.
it's real.
All right.
Okay, OGP 11 is on vacancies.
Mm-hmm.
This was regarding interviewing of nominees for filling a board position. And we there was something about what we would do if there were more than 5. And we just said, the board shall select for interviews applicants whose prior experience and express interest, blah, blah, blah. So we didn't commit ourselves to a number of applicants. We'll just select the ones we want.
Give us more flexibility. Okay. And I
Ones
think,
we feel are qualified. And then at the very end, F, the board secretary shall prepare for the signature of the board president a letter thanking all nominees. We didn't feel that needed to come from the entire board, just the board president.
They're the spokesperson.
That's right. That's what
all
we
right.
do.
So now
Last one, OGP 12. This was annual organizational meeting, election of officers. So we decided to make this consistent, since we're electing a president, we're also sometimes electing a legislative rep. So we thought we'd put it in there. So the board shall elect from among its members a president to serve a 1-year term, and in even numbered years, or if the position is vacant, a legislative representative. Theoretically, we elect that person in even numbered years, but the fact of the matter is the ledge rep in the middle of his or her term could not run for reelection, could decide to, or could be elected president. Lots of things could break that term. So we added the, or if the position is vacant. There's some capitals and stuff.
right. And then in here, I can, because I was the
Okay,
one
you
that
can
talked to
talk to
the,
this.
about the attorney about this one, where they had wording in there that indicated you had to pass the minutes before you go into the reorganization and the oath of office. And I inquired about that, and there's nothing in the law that says you need to do the minutes first. A board member that isn't present can approve minutes. A newly elected board member can approve minutes in the consent agenda. So
They didn't have a problem.
they
with
didn't
what
have
we do.
Well, so now we're matching it up to what we actually do, which is, we welcome the new board members. We do the oath of office for the new board members and they are seated. And then we do the annual reorganization of the board. And so again, we just added in here, those kind of reordered what was in here to add B, oath of office taken by newly elected board members, C, annual reorganization of the board. And within that, kind of a reformatting, because we call for nominations for president to serve during the ensuing year, election of the president by a roll call vote, assumption of office by the new president, and then in even numbered years, or if the position is vacant, election of the legislative representative. And then we do approval of consent agenda, which is basically what we already do. And then they had some additional RCW and some name changes to RCW. Okay. And I think that was it, because we already did this one and we already did that one. We got it out of order. Okay,
Isn't that fun?
that was
was-
fun.
Now tell me that we're not going to have a second read of the.
Yes, so to me, the very, very minor, putting PDC in parentheses after it, changing job description to role, fixing a couple more capitalizations. None of that requires a second read. Those are, again, we're making kind of grammatical fixes to this. The only one that's slightly more different is the one to change in GP5 about the immediate past president, our terminology there. So on that one, I might go ahead and really point it out to the whole board, what we're proposing. And if no one gives me any feedback, I'm going to ask for feedback. And if there's any feedback, then we'll put it on the agenda, regular agenda. If I get no feedback, then I'm going to put it on consent. And then again, if somebody doesn't want it on consent, they can pull it off the consent. So it doesn't preclude anything, but I'll make extra point of sharing that one, because that was the really, to me, only significant or even minorly significant changes in words. Okay. And again, as I mentioned, we hope to have OGP 6, I think it is, which is the director district legal words added to the consent by the time we get there. Okay.
Oh, you're going to take public input.
Yes, thank you. Because I got to get back. I got to stop sharing my screen so I can get back to my own notes.
I can't imagine why anyone
Yes, there we go.
wants to.
Now I'm back to my notes. And now, because this is something that will ultimately have board action on it, we would take public comment. So if there's anybody in the room or on Zoom who would like to take or offer up public comment, I would take it. All right, then we are good to move on to legislative matters. So I don't know on this one, Harlan had wanted, Director Gallinger, as I'm trying to do, had wanted us to go through the General Assembly Handbook on a few particular items. And I don't know if he is going to be able to join us.
Yeah, I wish he were here because he's given us specific ones to look at. And my curiosity is,
Why?
are these controversial? I mean, is there a reason? Now, I had one on the do pass list that I had questions about. But everything else that he pointed out, I was fine with, and I wondered if he knew something I didn't.
Well, and those were kind of my same question. Oh, Marnie, did you?
Well, and he had texted me a while ago saying that we were probably going to get to legislative matters before he got home.
Okay.
And then he hasn't responded to any of my
Okay.
other texts. I would think that any opinion that you might have, and I don't know if you had a chance to actually read the item, because I have to admit I didn't, about the ones that he asked about, but I can certainly take notes so that when we're at delegate assembly, we can get a sense of these. So the WASDA committee recommendation, so that's the legislative committee, may or may not actually be our viewpoint on something. That's one of the things I wanted to state. It is a collective of across the state. I think one of the things around the equity-based education system, I'm trying to recall on that one, I think some of it had to do with funding mechanisms that would not necessarily be a positive for Issaquah. Again, going back to many of it's going to be around poverty, which I think the state already does a lot of funding relative to additional funding for high poverty areas. And you don't want me to go into my whole thing about poverty and the Issaquah School District.
Now, are you talking to the do not pass ones or the
Right.
do pass?
So the do not pass. So
Okay.
number 54 is a do not pass recommendation from the WASDA committee, the equity-based education system.
But it wasn't from WASDA. It wasn't from the.
Yeah,
that
it was
what-
from Woodland.
yeah.
to
Right, but the
Alaska,
committee,
Slade.
the committee reviews everything.
Yes, and they gave
their
it a do not pass.
recommendation is do not pass.
Right, because it really removes a lot of the equity statement,
Right.
right? It wouldn't.
Right.
I read through, I actually didn't realize I was only supposed to look at some of them, so I actually read all
All
of
of
them.
them?
Because it's such an overachiever.
Good time.
Yeah, it was painful. And I did not disagree with any of the do not pass recommendations. I felt more strongly about some than others.
Okay.
But I thought it was all
Right.
reasonable not to pass them.
And I think that some of why he wants to know is because there will be times where if it's a strong sense that they can call weighted votes, right?
Right.
Because you could have something that is, because every school district gets a vote and there are a lot more smaller school districts than the larger urban districts. And so there could be things where the committees may say do not pass, but there's enough coming from a group that would allow it to pass without a weighted vote.
And there were a couple that were kind of concerning. I mean, there were a couple that were really trying to take the teeth out of equity and
Yeah, well, that's
change
what
equity to
54,
equality. And yeah. it
and that's
was- I was
54 and
not happy about.
64 were about that. So, and then 68 was just kind of odd, the delayed start times for middle school and high school.
That one is, you know, it's what California did. And my
Well-
concern would be, you know, you've got to fund that.
Yes, but theirs was it's even odder. They initiate or support legislation that allows middle and high schools to start between 8:15 and 9 a.m. Nothing
And which-
precludes us
which
today
number are
from
we
doing
on?
it.
68.
68. And again, that's very constrictive, 8:15 to 9 a.m. if a school wants to be 9:30. I mean, if they were trying to do what California did, they would say, you
Oh,
know,
you're right. It would be required.
it would be required to start no earlier than,
We already allow them.
I
to,
know,
don't
we can do anything sort of we want if we can afford it.
Well, and as long as we get all our hours in.
Right. So I didn't care for it written
Well,
that
I
way.
didn't care for it because we did a long study and a long process and determined that really 8 o'clock was the best that we could do to address everyone's needs at least somewhat.
Mhm.
And if someone suddenly passed a law that said 8:15, that just tears apart all the work we did. I mean, I guess we'd just bump everything 15 minutes, but it would make a lot of people unhappy.
Right.
So yeah, I didn't see a reason for that. I mean, I get
Yeah.
why they want to do it, but I feel like we already did it and I'm good with what we did.
And then there's the do pass. And I don't know.
And I think the comprehensive school safety was something that we put together a while back.
Yeah, I thought
Wasn't
what
it?
was it? Yeah, I thought it was several
This is
years
number
back.
3.
Yeah, number 3. And I thought it was interesting that the proposed amendment removed that the state should support these things. WASDA believes that it used to say WASDA believes that every, wait, they got the every is a new word.
Okay, here we
Sorry,
go.
that's the hard part. Believes the state should support school boards to plan and adopt locally relevant comprehensive school safety plans. And they want to change it. And just believes that every school board should adopt these plans, but totally removes the state's help.
Well, and I sort of got the gist that they wanted, well, no, maybe that wasn't it. They also added students and staff, which I was fine with.
Right, they added staff and working environment, which is fine because it's not only an environment for our students, but our staff.
It's sort of. Oh, no, it doesn't. I was saying it took out mental health, but it just moved it.
It did, it moved it to another section. So I don't know if Harlan had any concerns about it or,
I mean, I don't have strong feelings about it.
and then 17
17,
was, oh, the citizenship
that was
business.
the one that just bugged me because,
know.
you know, we had it pointed out to us that the use of the word citizenship was very uninclusive for people who weren't born in this country. And it made me wish that I was perfectly fine with the intent of this. It just made me wish they had used a different word, and they use it twice.
But it's also interesting because we do have we have a graduation requirement around civics. So wouldn't this already be considered in this? Right? Our students are required to take civics.
Yeah, I'm not even sure what they mean by citizenship.
I don't
Actually, that's
either.
an interesting question.
Yeah.
I know what they mean by digital citizenship,
Yes, but even there are better terminology.
but I'm sure they could come up with different words. But I don't know. I mean, is this like PTSA Ledge Assembly? Can you raise your hand and say, I want to amend it?
Yes, so if you have amendments, we can certainly do that. I think we are not doing live amendments. I think they have to be put in beforehand. So it's a little different.
Right. And I guess we should have said as we came into this, that this is the positions and stands of our Washington State School Director Association, and at General Assembly, the organization, which is represented by the school directors, votes on these positions or changes to positions and such. And then they use these to help facilitate communications with our legislators or in the state or at the federal government to meet the needs of our school directors and students who are supporting our students.
Well, and it
Yeah.
also allows us to advocate with the legislature without necessary lobbying, right? So we're stating these are our stances on
These
things.
are our positions.
So when
Yeah.
a bill comes forward, we are not saying yes to the bill, no to the bill. We're saying, here's what our organization, our association says about these issues that you're raising here.
Mhm.
And then that way you're not using government funds to lobby the government.
Well, I mean, what would you change digital citizenship to?
We had in our ends for, we referenced it by understanding opportunities and risks posed by digital technology and social media, including social emotional risks and safety impacts. I just wondered if there was a better
It's
way.
really digital behavior.
It is. You're the
Digital behaviors, appropriate digital behaviors.
Mhm.
I don't know. That would be my recommendation to Harlan. I don't know if he wants to get that much in the weeds. Behaviors or risks. I don't know. But otherwise, yeah, it's well meant, it's well meaning.
Mhm. The next one was that social media reporting point of contact.
It really
That was interesting. To have somebody,
And that might actually be timely, given what the Supreme Court is starting to do about how they rule about First Amendment rights of students versus what disrupts school, and can something that you do off campus really be disruptive to school? Because this thing references Tinker, but I thought the last time we went to a law conference, she talked about how the court was sort of
Tinker got a little gutted.
yes, thank you.
by that,
Yes.
So I actually think this is kind of neat.
if they could, take it anywhere,
Yeah,
right? It's just a position.
Right.
I like this.
And then 31 looked like it was simpler language around,
Oh, wait, can we back up a minute?
yeah. Sorry.
25, this wasn't one that
Oh.
Harlan talked about, but I looked at this and okay, more clearly defined online high school plan, delinking assessments. WASDA will, oh, no, that isn't it. Linking graduation requirements to career pathways. WASDA shall initiate and or support legislation that reduces total credits required for graduation to 20 credits. Do we support that?
No,
No.
Then we might want to mention it.
I agree.
And which number was this?
25. Okay,
Because again, the reason we fought so hard to get Core 24 was for the legislature to the state to actually fund 24 credits worth of time.
right, because if
And
they
so you
take-
pull them down to 20, guess what?
they're gonna.
What, they're going to fund 20 and say, okay, you've defined that as basic education.
Right. And that kills our 7th period day.
It kills our 6-period day.
Well, yes, fair point. Fair point.
Yep.
So I was just, yeah, and so the consolidated position statement, the first bullet is reducing total credits required
Yeah.
to 20 credits. So okay, that's my 2 cents.
Good.
Where we're going, 31.
31 was the next one in Harlan's list, and that had to do with simpler language around
Oh,
if the
RIFs.
if the legislature cuts funding during a school year, that we should have there should be a mechanism to terminate certificated contracts, because otherwise
Mid-year.
in that year, because otherwise we've cut our funding, but we can't cut our expenses.
And we should be clear that this position already exists. They are just fine tuning it.
Yeah,
Because there is a current statement that already talks about if they do mid-year cuts, we should be able to terminate contracts mid-year.
I do like that they're taking out it's a little bit snarky to say the Washington legislature already chooses to make funding reductions during the academic year. I mean, that's kind of a dig. at the
It was.
legislature
I mean,
It was.
for doing that.
It's a cleaner statement.
Yeah, it's a streamlined, simpler language.
And I did not have an issue with it.
And then 35, climate impact mitigation assistance.
I can see that that one could be controversial. They do. Okay, so this is a brand new policy, right?
Yes, new position.
New position, excuse me. Every one of these bullets, or the first 3, talks about funding. These things make me nervous when they're pie in the sky. Oh, wouldn't it be great if we all had climate friendly schools, and they don't address funding?
Mm-hmm.
But as long as they're advocating for funding.
As
to
long
do
as
this,
the funding pie is getting bigger versus taking money
well, yeah.
that's already attributed to education and then, reducing what we get to put money towards this necessarily. I don't know anything more about where it's only coming. I don't know.
And this one is,
Yeah.
Carver.
Yeah. And then 36.
Coming from the legislative committee. Okay, this looks like it's a consolidation.
It is.
And I wondered if Harlan flagged it because of the part about building outside the urban growth boundary.
Right. The whole school.
But it's still in there.
Right. And I think too, he might have flagged it because of the school construction and the SCAP funding. I don't know if there was something that in there changed to consolidate and remove something that he felt was important. But you're right. I looked and saw the Growth Management Act line was still in there, and that, it should be applicable to all districts.
So it looks like this is just a consolidation,
Right.
unless I'm missing something.
Yeah, sometimes they do skip over something or remove something in some of the
And it's hard to see
consolidation
that.
piece.
And then 42 is state funding support for full breadth of co-curricular activities. This was a new position put forward by
Bellevue.
Well, by Christine Chu
Yeah.
of Bellevue and Bellevue, I guess, the way they've written it.
Having trouble finding things, they don't have a mouse.
Support funding for facilities, equipment, staffing to have equitable access to co-curricular activities, including sports and arts and clubs.
I mean, this seems like things we've talked about.
That the state doesn't fund.
No.
I mean, it's certainly, if the state were to consider funding it, having a position to support it.
What number again was this?
42. And then 49, we say yes to.
Yeah, there's actually, I didn't quite understand. There's an A and a B and I don't know.
I didn't quite get that either, and maybe Marnie knows.
Here, let me look.
Why?
Except that A or B doesn't have the sentence about they have to be local. So.
Well, but I
we
think what
want
it,
A.
but don't things have to be voted to keep things in, have to be voted year after year after year until they.
Oh, is
become
that the
permanent?
problem? So they're
Well,
saying,
so-
do you want to vote it in as it is, or do you want to vote it in?
Well,
with the
that was my
change?
guess, but I'm not entirely clear.
Let me look at 49.
49 and then 49A. Because it's like,
Well, we want 49A.
we want 49 that adds the amendment,
Yeah.
And then
which
on the
is-
second
Which is
page,
option A.
which is option A. Yeah.
Because that was very troubling. They,
Like, yes, they said it. 59 districts
59
across the
districts.
state had the same person write the con to levy in bond ballots. And, you know, in those
Yes.
59, that person didn't live
so this
within the
is
district.
adding a sentence saying that the person who writes the con statement against a levy or a bond must reside within the district.
Yes.
Yes,
I'm all for that one.
me too.
So I'm going to say strong.
Strong yes.
Strong
Option A.
yes.
Strong yes on that one. Really like that. And then I'm sure Harlan can listen to our discussion. I don't know if you've made some notes, Marnie.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can share it. And then if he has any other ones he wants feedback on, he could also email us or ask us at the next meeting, because the next meeting is the 22nd and it's still before your assembly.
Okay.
I just don't know if there was timing related to your amendments. you know,
Yes, I think
pre-submitting
in
amendments
order to be able to submit
Yeah.
any type of amendment, it will have to be before
before
assembly.
that. Okay, well, it gave him some feedback and he can let us know if he needs more. All right, and anybody else have anything on that one? Okay. I'm trying to keep us moving. We're almost there. Announcements and correspondence. Did anybody have anything they needed to indicate?
I have one. I sent it to Diane.
Okay. All right, I don't have anything else.
I don't have any additional correspondence, but I did want to let you know, I will send it to the whole board. We are redoing, in the spring, we did an action forum for youth virtually.
Mm.
It wasn't well
Yeah.
attended.
I was
So we were
there.
actually doing a live in person in the morning on September 28th at 7:30 a.m. to 8:30 a.m. A light continental breakfast will be served. Where we'll go over the data and we'll have a youth panel there as well,
Okay.
which is why it's on a Wednesday morning,
Ah.
is so that the students could make
I'm
it
sorry,
to
what was the
class.
date? September?
September
28th?
28th. So it's a Wednesday morning
And
and
where
it's
is
at
it?
Blakely Hall.
Okay.
Up in the Issaquah Highlands.
Okay, great. Thank you for sharing that. Okay,
Are you-
unless-
Did you email
And
us?
by we, not yet. By we, I meant influence the choice.
Yeah.
So my apologies.
good for sharing that.
Okay, yeah. if you
And I
could- if you could
believe
send us a thank
that our
you, good.
superintendent is going to give us a nice warm welcome.
I was going to say, I do plan on attending. So thank you for the reminder and for promoting that for other people.
It's too bad it wasn't as well attended last spring,
Yeah.
but the virtual is hard and it's good that you can have something in person. Yeah.
And so if you, I would also ask if you know people in the community, because we all have influence, that
Mhm.
we're really looking at people that are ready to influence and are interested in this. So, you're welcome to invite them as well. So
Okay.
when I send that off, feel free to
Forward it on.
forward it on.
Very good.
And there should be some posts on our Facebook page tomorrow or next week. You can share as well.
Good. Excellent. Hope you have good attendance. All right, calendar and future agenda topics. We are still working on our Board of Distinction application, but the deadline has been extended to next Thursday, so it gives us a little bit more time. We're scheduled and have on the books our retreat for September 20th from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. or 5 p.m. I think it's 5 p.m. I don't know why I wrote 4 here. I guess it was wishful thinking. 5 p.m. And Suzanne and Heather and I are working on the agenda for that. So town hall, at our last meeting, we discussed 2 dates and we have firmed up now that we're to have the town hall on November 2nd at 7 p.m. in the, I thought we had them at 7.
I want to say 7.
Whenever the room is available.
Well, we have the room 7. Okay. That's okay. At the Maywood Library. So we would take a motion to schedule that.
The invite says May Valley Library.
It's okay.
I just noticed that.
Yeah.
Oh, you want a motion? I'm
I'll
sorry.
take a motion for that.
I move that we schedule a board town hall for November 2nd at 7 p.m. at Maywood Library.
Second.
Excellent. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right. So we have our town hall scheduled and we will go from there with that.
And that's an in-person.
That's
Yeah.
in person.
Okay.
That's
Yeah, yeah.
just totally in person at the Maywood Library. And then I'm just pointing out so everybody can start thinking about it, that registration for NSBA opens October 5th. To think about whether that fits into your schedule. It's April 1st to the 4th in Orlando. And so I'm not asking now, but eventually Diane will be asking if we're going. And then lastly, I was going to explain about the equity training, but it was really, I think I'll send it in an email related to the equity training that we all need to take within our term. I think it'll be easier to explain it in an email.
Is
bring
that
everybody
something
up
we
to date.
do at WASDA?
Well, you and I are signed up for the first class at WASDA. Oh, there's Harlan.
We just finished.
Are we good?
Well,
No, we can't. You're muted.
yeah, unmute.
There you go.
Sorry, I missed it.
Well, we actually wondered if there were any particular reasons that you singled out the numbers that you did, because we couldn't really tell.
Yeah, I think that a couple reasons. So for the ones that were the do not pass, I really wanted to understand clearly from our group collectively on, is this something that we would agree that we wouldn't want to pass? Because some of them I thought were controversial and I wasn't sure where we necessarily stood. Other ones I thought were pretty clear, like I would know where I feel like I have enough experience to know what we would and wouldn't do. And then for the ones for the do pass, I thought it was a really important ones to just talk about ones that are a priority that our board has had in the past, or many of them are ones that we actually wrote and have now just been edited over the time. And so I thought it was also good for our community to see the connection between what our work is at policy level, how do we then translate that to advocacy? And so I thought many of those were great examples.
Okay.
And I took sloppy but copious notes, or you can watch the video.
I mean, there was one on the do pass list, which was not one that you flagged, that I had questions about because it advocated for reducing graduation credits to 20. And I wasn't sure that we were in favor of that.
No, I might have missed that one. I think that there
Number
are
25.
25. There are sometimes many on there that we don't agree with, like statewide bargaining or whatnot, that I know that mathematically we don't have the votes to stop because of WASDA is really a small schools organization that large districts don't have as many votes.
Okay.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think if you watch our conversation, you'll get the gist of what we talked about.
Yeah. And then if you had any other things that are specific, you could email us too to get feedback.
Well, thanks you guys. Thanks for having that discussion.
Thanks. All right. Well, I think that brings us, oh, you asked about the equity training that I was describing, because there was a law that was passed that all school directors have to have equity training that's being put on by WASDA. There are these onboard modules. I think Marnie and Harlan have taken at least the first one. I was aware of that. But we have to take 2 within our first term, and then after that, 1 each term. And so you and I signed up for one sort of pre-conference. It's part of the conference. We're doing the law conference, and then it's our afternoon. It's the introduction to equity.
Oh, so the law conference is just in the morning?
The law conference is just in the morning, and then this equity module is in the afternoon.
Okay.
But it's currently full, and there's a wait list. So some of this was all for Sydney, because these 2 already know about it.
Right.
You and I are getting started, but I was going to bring her up to speed, but that's why I'm going to send it out as a email so that everybody sees it, so that we can all get the training done within our term. And then the reason I really started digging into this was because of the new director, that for new directors, they have to do it within the first 2 years, which is why I put it in related to the new director. Mentors should help the new director know what this training is and help facilitate them getting it in with that. All right, but that brings us to the end, unless anybody has any other business. We are adjourned.